Hello and welcome to the podcast. I am your host, Sterling McKinley, and you are watching In the Black. Each week, we interview another diverse entrepreneur and we share their challenges, their success stories, but most importantly, how they built a profitable business. Tonight's guest is Marcy Jackson. She's a special education advocate that works with young adults, parents, and teachers. Marcy, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for being here. So, I gave a brief intro because I hate reading the intros because they're long and they're boring. But we want to hear from you. So, take 30 seconds and tell us exactly what you do and who you are.
Okay, great. I am a I'm an educational leader.
Okay.
About 20 years, and I have led in education in a variety of facets, corporate higher ed and special ed, as you mentioned,
Okay.
faith education as well. And I love education. I love teaching, learning, the whole
Right.
process. And so, as an educational consultant, you are asked to help typically a family
Okay.
or a team of educators
Right.
to bring your expertise to help the child reach their educational goals.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
All right. So let's back up. I want to know how you got started. So, what attracted you to education? Let's go way back 20, 30 years. What made you want to get into this field?
All right. So, if and maybe other people have experienced this, but my earliest memory of education is being in my room. I was the being in my bedroom as a little
Okay.
girl and playing with my stuffed animals,
Right.
pretending that I was a teacher,
Okay.
uh, passing out papers to stuffed
Oh
animals
wow.
who can't do anything with it, and
Right.
having a and marking it. So that was really what I remember. So I think I always knew that I wanted
Right.
to impart information.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
my family is really big in education, and I
Okay.
remember my uncle would give me this. I remember these particular books. It was a Dr. Seuss book and a Richard Scarry book, and I just remember in the Dr. Seuss it was a dictionary, and it just said, never be afraid to look up a word you don't know.
Mm.
Words are the key to
Okay.
life, and just always, you always had these family
Right.
and people around you who are always encouraging you.
Right.
Um, and so that's pretty much what I remember is
Okay.
learning was priority.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said because I have a newborn born son as well. Well, now infant son as well. And I'm always telling my wife we should really just study him and we should try to push him towards the things that he naturally does. So that was great. As a child, you already had that desire for education, and you ended up doing that. So I think that's awesome. So what was the next step? What did you do in college? Did you major in education in college? Were you a teacher?
you would
How did that start?
you would think I would have, right? No,
Right.
and all my college friends, they were all majoring in education, and it's so
Okay.
funny back really didn't even think about it in that way. But I was always um, still engaging in sharing information and
Right.
imparting. I took a big towards the end of high school. I really began taking on a lot of leadership, and so college was really a big leadership experience for me,
Okay.
and the entrepreneurial and desire for innovation kind of began. Um, I was outstanding woman of the year for Towson University back in
Oh wow.
I don't, I don't know what year that was, 90 something,
Okay.
93. So no, my major was international relations. Um, I wanted to be a bridge
Okay.
for cultural awareness, and
Okay.
that's what I wanted. You know, so the that the profession and the discipline of education didn't come. And in fact, what happened
Right.
is right after college, I went became a trainer. So I went into
Okay.
sales and training. And so the adult education piece kicked
Right.
in. I had a chance to really, I did some, I was a substitute teacher. Um, I did some experiences, in K 12
Right.
along the way there with younger children. But I never really took hold of it. I spent a lot of time in professional development, management development,
Okay.
um, and working with adults and young adults.
Right. Okay. All right. So, some of those early experiences, what were some things you learned from that early experience in adult education and training? What are some of the things that you picked up along the way?
Well, with adults, I think, as we know, adult education and teaching adults and teaching children is different. And teaching adults, you can kind of have sort of this expectation for learning
Right.
that is typically a shared expectation. It's not something you have to actually um, force in a
Okay.
sense. You don't have to spend a lot of time creating a desire to
Right.
learn. And so I think that's the one thing that I'm always mindful of whenever I'm in the face of students who are younger than 18, and then when I'm with adults is
Right.
just making sure that I am, because I switch a lot. You know how we talk about people switching in workplace and home
Right.
from adult learners to child learners sometimes. And so it's really about making sure you know who your audience is, and
Right.
you have to be sure who it is
Hmm.
that you are working for, who you're targeting, and be able to adapt.
Okay. Great. Okay. All right. So you worked as a trainer for a while. So what was your next step in education? What you would do next to kind of feed that desire you had to teach?
Well, that was so I did that. I worked in corporate for a while, and then I
Okay.
actually went out a little bit on my own,
Okay.
and I started a business where we did like sort of like HRL work,
Right.
where it was like organizational development, and so I would do training, recruiting, and I had a desire to really build that out further. So I did that
Okay.
for a couple of years, and and then um, and then I went into higher education and
Right.
workforce. That's what kind of led me to actually realizing
Hmm.
I was working on a certain program. At that time, I got a chance to run a school, a driver
Okay.
education school along the way, as I was working in workforce development. I got a chance to run a school and a driver education school. And,
Right.
typical driver education school. Well, one of the things I found was that students weren't learning.
Okay.
Not all students leading, rather. And, as the investigative person that I am, I began to try to uncover why students weren't learning. What were the barriers
Right.
to learn? I found that there were students that had social and cognitive limitations
Okay.
that weren't disclosed. Um, and that was really a concern because that meant that they weren't fully being able to access the
Right.
curriculum and and let alone have a chance to see if they could indeed drive.
Mm.
So I along the way, basically, I developed the first developmental driver education program.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, in the country, and that
Okay.
was
Awesome.
really exciting, and it allowed us to spend time,
Hmm.
giving more hours to students behind the wheel,
Right.
actually developing co-taught classrooms,
Hmm.
modifying curriculum, and I worked with the Office of Civil Rights to just to make sure we were, appropriately working with accommodations. I worked with our disability support services department, so
Right.
it was like collaborative. Education is collaborative when you're trying to make sure that you're
Hmm.
trying to meet student outcomes. And along that way, that's when I simultaneously, I was also
Hmm.
advocating for my own son who had our oldest son
Okay.
has was diagnosed with Down syndrome, and so I was also advocating for
Right.
him, as a mom, right? And so I really
Right.
didn't know about the field, and gratefully, Weinfeld Education Group had a wonderful course at the time that I was able to take, and I became, really competent in
Hmm.
special education advocacy, beyond my own son, beyond developmental
Right.
driver education. Realized that, there was a way, if I could fit it in my schedule, there was a way to continue to help
Right.
more students. And so that was
Okay.
about 15 years ago.
Okay. All
So
right. All
I
right. Great. So
thought,
you said a lot there. So let's back up
those,
some. So one thing that's been big now in the past 2 years is homeschooling and parents being more engaged in their learning of their students. So what are some things parents can do early on to kind of make sure that their kid is going in the right direction and doesn't have any kind of learning challenges?
that's a great question. So, there are things that we're born with, and there are things that we kind of pick up along the way.
Right.
And as a parent, my husband and I, we have multiple children. We have several children, and so I speak to this. And we also wrote a parenting book together.
Okay.
It's called. And one of, we talk about educational leadership in the book. We also talk about nurturing in the
Right.
book. And the nurturing part is you have to be observant.
Hmm.
You have to observe your child. You have to also, and we certainly all make these parenting mistakes. I think it's also important to really understand child development.
Right.
I think that's the disadvantage I didn't have. It's like I was constantly just trying to learn. It wasn't like I was. I'm not saying every parent should go to school to become a child
Right.
specialist. That's not what parenting is. But if you can learn the skill to observe
Right.
and um, to collaborate with
Hmm.
family and friends and the school, whoever's teaching it, whether it's a school or a homeschool program,
Right.
whoever's teaching, you can learn to collaborate and talk about what you're seeing, and
Okay.
definitely do compare them to typically aged um, uh, peers,
Right.
or those milestones are. Every
Okay.
child is every child is unique, so you're
Right.
not going to say didn't meet this. It's about observing and giving some room for that. And then if you do suspect a disability, or you do suspect that there is
Hmm.
um, delayed reading, delayed computation in terms of math facts, or you notice that there are delayed gross or fine motor, any of those delays, you might, because remember, there are developmental milestones is right after birth. There are certain things the doctors are looking for. There are certain things that you're constantly looking for until your child is almost grown.
Right.
um, and so if you notice that, then yeah, you want to definitely talk to your pediatrician.
Hmm.
You can definitely talk to your school. And if you find that you're running into a wall with the school, you're running into
Okay.
a wall with, that's where educational advocate can come in and
Right.
evaluate documents, try to look at the help you look at the whole child perspective to
Right.
get an education plan.
Right. Okay. All right. Great. I love that. Definitely some good tips there. So let's transition into more what you're doing now. So I think that connection between education and workforce development is huge because kind of like what you was touching on. I think if you might have challenges, whatever they may be, I think those can also lessen your income, your potential to earn income. So let's talk about how workforce development really closes that gap and why it's so important.
Well, you know, um, it's important to note. it's important to have knowledge, but it's important to be able to do something with what you
Right.
know. And the workforce development is about doing something with what you know,
Right.
and getting paid for it,
Right.
getting paid well for it, right? And
Right.
so, just to make the connection with special education, my passion is sort of making sure that along that continuum,
Okay.
we are removing barriers to students so that they can have those opportunities
Right.
to develop core skills.
Okay.
Um, and too often, education puts a barrier there. So,
Right.
might have, whether it's a disability or whether it's inequity. 75% of white male students, over 45% of black male students in fourth grade are getting reading intervention support.
Right.
But it's so we want to make sure that all students have sort of this way of, um, because the services and resources are available for all students. So
Right.
the end of the game, why do we go to school? We go to school so we can work, right?
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
is, we're all learning so that we can be self-sufficient and
Exactly.
earn an income in some form or fashion. Well, all students with disabilities have a right to that. Ex-offenders, those are, reentry, male and female, all have a right to be able to earn a living. So
Right.
when I look at the work that I do, it's about trying to make all of that, make that accessible to them.
Okay. Great. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Um, yeah, so let's talk about what you're doing now. So, what is the project you're working on now? You mentioned before you had a book. Are you releasing that? And how can people get in contact with you if they want to purchase that book?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so I can send you. I don't know the link offhand. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. I
that's
probably,
fine.
but I can give it to you, and maybe you
Yeah,
can post. Um,
sure.
but yeah,
What's,
so
explain
one
to
of
us what is the book about?
what
Like, what did it
yeah,
get in the book?
well, what happened was, out of we so I used to do, again, focusing on workforce and just the passion for, love, loving people. We would teach parenting. My husband and I would teach parenting, in prisons.
Okay.
And so we did that for a couple of years, and we learned a lot. We learned, and so what we did is took what we learned, through that program, um, that we administered, and it was and basically developed, a curriculum
Okay.
through that process. We administered our parenting curriculum in the prison.
Right.
And so the book just talks about, it's, PARENTS. P is provide, A is attitude, R is routine, E is education, N is nurture, T is teamwork, and S is safety.
Okay.
And so basically, those are all the critical competencies that parents have to have. You have to be able to provide. You have to be able to have an appropriate attitude towards, things that are going to make you angry, things that are going to make you
Right.
anxious, having a routine, and et cetera, et cetera. So that is, that is that came out of, um, a need. It's a resource, just to help. And so organizations can order
Mhm.
bundles of it. It's really not necessarily per person book.
Okay.
We, do organizations to share with their clientele, with their membership.
Okay.
Um, and so if they connect with me on LinkedIn, I can set them up with the order. And then
Right.
the idea that you purchase, specifically for, with your reparenting. And reparenting is like, I need to do this better, or,
Right.
away from my child for years because of
Right.
maybe I've been military, or maybe I was incarcerated.
Hmm.
Um, so if your organization and you work with, individuals that fit that, composite, then this is a resource that you can provide to them to help them, to be better providers. We talk about, entrepreneurship a little bit. We talk about what income is and things like that. Just to help give a little general awareness
Okay.
of basic. Mhm.
Great. And now you also work for organizations and companies, so you go into there and do training. How does that work?
Well, right now, the our goal right now is,
Okay.
when I do special ed consulting, it's for, any student.
Right.
Um, but we found that we really want to use this opportunity to identify and remove barriers
Okay.
to with special needs. So I speak on inequities in special education to schools and teachers. In
Right.
fact, we have a course that was accepted in the Los Angeles School District
Oh,
and
awesome.
New York Department of Education. It's an online course,
Right.
professional for teachers and
Okay.
staff.
Awesome. Great. All right. So thanks for sharing with us today. But how can people contact you? That's for the book. That's for just other of the work. How can somebody find you online?
I think LinkedIn is the best thing. Just type in
Okay.
Marcy Jackson, and then I can, connect with you. If you're
Right.
looking for want special education advocacy help, like
Mm-hmm.
you need an educational advocate to help, go into school, be with you during IEP meetings, 504 plans, and help you with that process, then email me, contact Weinfeld Education Group,
Okay.
and um, and uh, and then we can connect that way. Or you can, like I said, you can just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. All right, one last question. We ask every guest. So we end this podcast today. You leave your office, you go outside, and you find a bag of money. You find $10 million. What do you do with that $10 million?
What do I do with $10 million? Um, well, I mean, probably I'm going to tithe,
Right.
first of all. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And then I'm going to pay whatever bills I have.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm probably going to do a huge portion of donation. And
Right.
I'm going to make sure that, I would really like to be able to impact more students.
Okay.
The advocacy I do right now is, um, we do one student at a time.
Right.
And most of the work we do in this world is one person at a time. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how we let our light shine, that one person at a time.
Right.
But, if there's a way to kind of replicate what it is that I'm doing to impact more students, that's probably what I would do.
Okay. All right, great. Well, Marcy, once again, thanks for bringing on the program. You shared a lot of information about your story, a lot of good tips. But thank you again.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
All right, great. Well, once again, that was Marcy Jackson, and she shared so much about her journey, what she learned along the way, gave us a lot of great tips and advice. But once again, you're watching In the Black, and we're right here every Thursday at 5 p.m., and we're always sharing new stories of diverse entrepreneurs, sharing their ups and downs of their journey, but most importantly, how they built a profitable business that stays on the black. Once again, we'll see you right here on next Thursday at 5 p.m. Take care. Bye.